Rome was thrown into chaos late night when a severe storm hit the Italian capital, bringing torrential rain, violent wind, and widespread flooding that turned historic streets into raging rivers. The violent downpour, which lasted then 2 hours, was described by local meteorologists as one of the most intense weather events in the recent years. The storm began shortly after sunset with the thunder echoing across the ancient city skyline. Within minutes, water flooded the narrow valleys, Trastevere and Testaccio, clogging severe and flooding basements. It looked like apocalypse, said resident Marco Rossi. Lightning lit up the Colosseum. Within seconds, the streets disappeared underwater. Emergency services were inundated with more than 1,400 calls rescuing motorists trapped flooded underpasses and helped residents evacuate flooded homes. Public transportation came to a standstill, subway lines were suspended, and several major routes including Via Appia were completely impossible. The city mayor Roberto Gualtieri urged calm, but they admitted the Rome's severe system was never designated the storm was intensity. At Campuna Airport, flights were delayed due to the winds gust reaching 64 mph, where commuters at Termini station faced power outage and cancellations. In the Vatican, lightning struck near St. Peter Basilica, brilliantly cut power to parts of Vatican City. It was both terrifying and strangely beautiful, said tourist Emily Carter from the UK. The thunder echoing across the square like cannot shot. Meteorologists of the Italian Severe Protection Agency linking of the severity of the storm and unusual heat the Mediterranean, which followed stronger connective system, were seeing extreme weather events with a great frequency, explained climatologist Elena Fiori. Storms like this, one of the rare, are becoming dangerously new normal. Across the Lazio region, trees were uprooted, cars damaged in a coastal town hit by high waves. In Ostia, residents reported sea fought from flood debris in the streets along the seafront. Preliminary estimates suggest that the damage could exceed $20 million. At dawn, Romans came out and the ashes of the aftermath, ancient monuments glistering under the plain sun, surrounding the mud and debris. Yet amid the destruction there was a resilience. Rome was overcome worst moments in the history. Rome, a powerful autumn storm hit the Italian capital late on Sunday evening, bringing torrential rain, violent winds and lightning that left several neighborhoods in the darkness. Streets turned into raging rivers and the Tiber overflowing in low-lying area, leaving cars submerged and paralyzing public transport. Emergency service reported to received more than 800 calls in a few hours, with firefighters rescuing dozens of people trapped in the vehicles and underground garage. "We haven't seen intense fire in the years," said Luca Bianchi in Rome firefighters. The rain was falling fast, so seven simply couldn't cope. The iconic Colosseum neighborhoods and Via del Corso were heavily flooded, forcing tourists to seek shelters in a bus and subway station. Several subway lines were temporarily closed, and flights and Flamenco airports were delayed and diverted due to lightning and strong crosswinds. Meteorologists from Italy's Civil Protection Department say from the storm and followed by warm Mediterranean air cold in with a cold front from the northern Europe, creating explosive weather conditions. In some areas, rainfall exceeded 3.5 inches in less than 2 hours. The equivalent of the month was not for rain. Authority urged residents to avoid unnecessary travel and warning of the possibility of landscape nearly hit districts such as Tivoli and Frascati. Rome Major Roberto Gagliardi said emergency crews were walking around the clock to restore power and clear blocked roads. "We are seeing an terrible effects of the changing climate," he told reports. Social media was flooded with dramatic videos showing hailstorms the size of a marble, thunder echoing through the city and lighting illumination the ancient skyline. Residents described the storm as apocalyptic and terrifying, but a fine answer. The down the sky had cleared, received streets littered with debris and standard vehicles. Meteorologists warned that more storm could follow, and Italy remained under the red weather alert, a stark reminder of how even historic cities like Rome have become vulnerable to extreme weather events. Tourists were equally astonished. Video circulated widely on social media showing iconic landmarks surrounded by palms and hail sparking combination of northern European winter. Authority warning of potential group damage in nearly laser farmland, particularly vineyards and olive groves. Experts note that while hailstorms are not unusual in the central Italy, an intensity of the scale and episode underline a growing volatile weather patterns linking to climate change. A cleanup operations continue. Residents are left reflecting on yet another reminder of nature forcing the city form of the history but increasingly tested by modern climate extremes. The Italian capital was through the initial turmoil after sudden and violent hailstorm hit the Rome, covering the streets with the ice, damaged vehicles and leaving residents stranded. The storm, which arrived without warning, was declared a meteorologist is one of the most intense hail events the city has in the decades. Within minutes, the sky darkened over the central Rome before unleashing the barrage of hailstorms, some the size of a golf ball. The streets around the Colosseum, Pisa, Venezia and Trastevere was transformed into rivers of ice. Video shared on social media showed scooters and cars are skidding out of control while passengers rolled their shelters in subway station. It sounded like the gunshot of roofs, said residents. Chiara Lombardi was a car white plate was shattered. In 15 minutes everything was destroyed. Emergency service responded to hundreds of calls or rescued drivers trapped in the flooded overpasses and removing fallen branches. At least 25 people were injured, mainly is broken glass and debris. The small town of Albaliv in province of Como was left in shock after severe hailstorm hit the area on a Monday evening, covering streets, cars and roofs with ice balls with the size of walnuts in some areas tennis ball. The storm, which lasted less than half an hour, caused significant damage but struck locals with a sudden ferocity. Residents described it chaotic stints and roads turned wild in a matter of minutes, forcing cars to stop. It was like an attack, where the hail was so strong that it broke roofs, totaled and damaged cars in a second, said Maria Conti, a shop owner in the city center. Several houses had broken windows and emergency service received dozens of calls for help. Firefighters worked throughout the night and cleared fallen branches to secure damaged roofs, with the local farmers reported significant crops losers, especially in vineyards and orange weather were weeks away from the harvest. Agriculture Association estimated the damage of hundreds of thousands of euros. Videos posted online showed the streets Albaville resembling frozen river with a rain overflowing with the southern Russian water and ice. Public transport were the disruption throughout the province of Como, and temporarily enclosures were put up in place to prevent accidents. Meteorologists explained the phenomenon as a result in a sharp rise in hot, humid air against the cold front moving from the northern Italy, and the collisions that can cause severe thunderstorm and hail. Experts also noted that climate change is increasing both with the frequency and severity of such events throughout the region. Local authority urged residents to check instability in their roofs and vehicles, and the major promised rapid assistance to those affected. Albaville was faced many storms, but this was one of the worst in recent years. We support our community in the recovery, he said. For the many residents of the province of Como, this storm was stark reminder of the unpredictability of nature, and the growing challenge is adapting to weather conditions. Storm winds with the cyclone rotation around the lowland between Basilicata and Campania when gets up to 100 km/h in the lower Tyrrhenian Sea, Sicilian, Ionian and Adriatic straits as the result of strong winds surge along the open coast. The situation is less critical in the West Mons basins and the upper Tyrrhenian Sea. Bad weather is raging in Lazio, but not only there. Strong storms surge throughout Italy and snow at the well low altitude. The sea is stormy all the coast of Ponza is the ferry connecting of the island Formia and the Marca of the waves. The ship brought to the Formia left on the hour late today. By evening it was still and the road can left Ponza at 3:13 p.m. It is expected to arrive Formia around 8:45 p.m. Rome, Italy was hit by unprecedented hailstorm, surprised and catching locals by tourists of Guad. The storm brought heavy rain, lightning and hailstorm the size of a golf ball, caused damage of cars, homes and businesses. Witnesses reported hearing long bands of the hailstorm stuck roofs and windows. Many took to social media share photos and video of severe storm, with some experienced disbelief as such weather could occur in a normally sunny sea. Sicily, normally bridge collapsed looks at the dew blow from the narrow fields and when green groups are now fast to swell through the molten water. Environmental warning in addition to human casualties, entire ecosystem have been temporarily destroyed. In the city of Noto, residents placed candles and the steps of historic cathedral in memory of the victims. Local presses helped open air masses in a flooded courtyard, calling the stretch and the unity. One of the Syrians, Lucia Manso, said, "We lost our beginnings, but not each other. The most important things." Meanwhile, the Italian army remained the standby with more than 400 soldiers destroyed across the isolated to clear debris, reinforce river banks to deliver aid to remove vigilantes. The EU has also experienced its support. A team from the US Civil Protection Mechanism has been sent to coordinate with the Italian authority, increasing the likelihood of international funding to support long-term recovery. Scientists emphasize this is only a high bridge of may become normal. Southern Europe is especially by the Mediterranean basin is becoming increasingly vulnerable to extreme weather events and the climate change accelerators. In just a few hours, some areas received more rainfall than they normally do into entire months. Schools and government official and affected areas were closed to precautions and civil protection until the disrupted assist the damage and assist in a cleanup. In Palermo, several unprecedented wave-flooded rapid cars and landslides were reported in towns located on hills. Experts warned that such intense and frequent storms could become normal in southern Italy. Climatologists are urging authorities and citizens to strengthen infrastructure and emergency preparedness on the Mediterranean region continue to face the worsened effect of global warming. As Sicily begins the cleanup, the storm severs and not yet another stark reminder on a growing instability on the nature and urgent need to action to ensure environmental sustainability. In the second turn of event, Italy was thrown into chaos as a first storm wreaked havoc across the picturesque landscape of Sicily and Rome. The unrelated tempest, reminiscent of a scene of Dante's Inferno, left a trail of destruction in its wake, testing the resilience of these Italian people and the determination of republic their beloved cities. Sicily, now in the straddling Mediterranean coastal line and historic Kern, is almost hardest hit by violent tempest. The island, unusually a sure weather, were charged in the turbulent sea of fury, pouring the curse and related force. Torrential rain, accompanied by gale force wind, battered the region, caused widespread flooding, triggering landscape and uprooted centuries-old trees.
Questo è un grosso problema, molto grosso. Porta via il negozio qua.
As Sicily slowly begins to dry up, the real lesson of the storm is being recovered not only in losers but also in dialogue and the growing average in the Mediterranean Sea. One of the candle ice calm sea is sunny skies is becoming of the epicenter of the climate disaster. Experts call this a turning point to the urge Southern European government is invest in the climate resilience. Coastal cities such as Palermo and Catania, densely populated, are reaching a culture heritage, particularly vulnerable to rising sea levels, increasing rainfall to heat waves. The Mediterranean Sea is warming 20% faster than the global average, said Dr. Elena Morandi, the climate researcher of University of Rome. This storm was not a fluke. This is part of the trend we are seeing more intense, more frequent, more destructive. International observers from UNESCO have experienced concerns about Sicily historical monuments, many of which were flooded or damaged during this storm. The Brockway tributaries of Noto and ancient Greek ruins are still nude, and new parts of the parts surrounding Mount Etna were affected. The Italian island of Sicily is battling catastrophic flooded and unprecedented rain turned entire town into disaster zone. Meteorologists have described this storm as a once-of-the-century event, and official warning the full extent of the damage is not yet known. The streets of Palermo turned into rivers, cars were swept away by a building, and underground garages were flooded in a matter of minutes. In Catania, residents were forced in a wet chest deep through the metro in the city center, and hospital reported serious damage to emergency rooms. Messina, Sorrento, and rural mountain community were cut off by landslides. In less than a day, more than 250 millimeters of rain fell, almost as much in 4 months. Italy's Civil Protection Agency issued a red alert, urged residents to stay indoors. Helicopters and rescue boats worked around the clock to evacuate families trapped in the upper floor. At least 10 people were killed and more than injured and missing. I thought that it was the end, said Salvador Vital, a 64-year-old farmer who was the livestock while floods inundated his field.
macchine se ne sono andate, sono volate.
Rome was left stranded after extraordinary hailstorm turned in the Athenian city into the local described the sudden winter in September. Streets across the capital, including area near the Colosseum and a piece of Venice, were blanketed a thick layer of ice, disrupting traffic and caused widespread astonishment. The violent storm struck with a little warning, planted the city with a hailstone the size of a walnut. Within minutes, the rain were overwhelming, leaving the flash flood in low-lying districts. Motorists were forced to abandon cars and ice storm swept through the several avenues, while public buses struggled to navigate blocked roads. Emergency service reported dozens of calls to assistance. Firefighters were deployed to clear fallen branches and rescue driver traffic to flooded in underpasses. No fatalities were confirmed, but several minor injuries occurred as people slipped on the ice-coated pavement. One resident told local media, "I lived in Rome 40 years. I never seen hail like this. I felt that the city had been dropped into another season." Meteorologists explained that the year was triggered by a clash of warm Mediterranean air with a powerful cold front from the northern Europe, creating ideal conditions from the hail formations. Severe storms have struck Italy, Emilia-Romagna region, alleged torrential rain, hail and powerful winds that caused flash flooding, power outage and widespread disruption. The violent weather in the late Monday drenched cities including Bologna, Madeira, Ravenna and Forlì, and leaving several communities under water within an hour. Residents described scenes of chaos, and the streets turned into rivers and vehicles were swept away. The water rose so quickly that we barely had time to measure our car, said Luca Bianchi, a shop owner in central Bologna. It was like a city was drowned. Firefighters carried out more than 800 emergency inverters overnight, rescue standard motorists and pumped water from flooded homes. In Ravenna, authority ordered evacuation after local rivers overflowed. Wide section of the A14 motorway were temporarily closed due to landslides and debris. Meteorologists say the storm were triggered and the sharp drop in air pressure as warm, humid air from the Adriatic collided with a cold front descended from the northern Europe, a risk from intense thunderstorm. A sudden violent hailstorm struck Rome, Italy, covering part of the capital in ice and causing severe disruption to daily life. The storm, which erupted late in the afternoon, estimated both residents and tourists with the intensity transformed the eternal city into the unreal winter scene in the middle of autumn. According to Italy's Severe Protection Agency, hailstones the size of walnuts fell continuously for about 20 minutes, damaged vehicles, shattered windows and trittering through outdoor restaurant avoid. Emergency service prevented hundreds of rescue requests, particularly in central and northern districts like Perilli, Prati and Flaminio, where roads flooded instantly. The traffic came to complete standstill. Video posted online showed vehicles plummeting through the thick layer of hail and pedestrians seek shelters on the sidewalks and subway station away. Local residents Gianni Ganti, caught in the storm on her way home, said it was like a blizzard. "I could believe this was Rome." Meteorologists say the storm dumped over 8 millimeters of rain in just 1 hour, nearly half of rain average monthly rainfall. Experts link the event of growing instability of the Mediterranean climate. Following the water, sea temperatures, ice sheets, storms are becoming more frequent and more destructive, said Dr. Evan Tufari, a climatologist of the University of Bologna. Video shared online showed massive hailstorm pelting the streets while the residents sheltered the cafes and metro station. In the suburbs, strong winds on the roof from buildings and left thousands without electricity. Major Roberto Giuliani was called to the emergency assessment, warning that the Rome outdated drainage system can no longer handle such tropical-style weather patterns. The storm here reignite debates about the Italy preparedness for the climate extremes. As one resident wrote on social media, Rome is drawing not from the history but from the neglect. Citrus, grove, vineyards, and olive orange in the eastern Sicily were heavily damaged. Farmer Marco Rossi near Catania said, "The hail destroyed it weeks in the work in minutes. Our harvest is gone." Local authority estimated preliminary damage in the million of euros. Social media was flooded with the dramatic videos and the hail bouncing off historic buildings. Streets transformed into the city rivers, and the residents helped each other to navigate the flooded areas. Lightning and thunder added to the chaotic scene, where the palm trees and old city was bored the of strong wind. Meteorologists warn that the storm-like are becoming more frequent due to climate change. With the increased atmospheric instability across the Mediterranean, Dr. Alessandro Conti, a climate expert, noted, "Wednesday, a more humid air, the falling storm of unpredictable intensity in the Sicily and across southern Europe. By nightfall, cleanup crews worked to clear debris, restore traffic, and AC structure damage. Residents emergency casually to inspect their constant streets, capturing strikers, emerge an ancient Sicily town under the blanket of hail." On Tuesday afternoon, Rome experienced a shocking weather change. Heavy hail fell on the city, leaving an instant cover in ice and chaos. The warm and humid day quickly turned into sin and destruction as dark cloud gathered over the capital aid. Without warning, released hailstorm the size of walnuts with pelted cars, roofs, and pristines. Within the minutes, the city's cobbled streets turned into ice rivers, and the ambulances series broke through the narrow valley and the Trastevere and Testaccio. Locals took refuge in cafes, shops, and metro station while the storm raged for nearly an hour. "It was terrible," said Gianni Moretti, a taxi driver who was cut off in the storm. "The hail was so heavy and I could see road. I thought the white ship would break." The hail caused significant damage to white ship damaged cars and flooding low-lying area. In some parts of Via Appia and Lungotevere, parked cars were flooded up to their doors, and a section of Rome metro lines A and B were temporarily closed due to water ingress. Firefighters received more than 500 emergency calls, including rescue of people from the stuck cars and flooded basements. Rome, Italy. In a ray of terrifying weather event, the Italian capital was struck by a sudden hailstorm that transformed in the city golden autumn in the scene in the destruction. The streets around the Colosseum, Piazza Navona, and Vegetation were covered in a white blanket of torrent of water, ice flooding Rome in a matter of minutes. The hailstorms came almost without warning. First there was the light rain, and then bang, everything turned white, recalled Luca Marina, a taxi driver who was stuck near a terminal station. Hailstones the size cone they hidden by the white breed, so hard that I thought it would crack. The storm lasted just under 14 minutes, but it effect was severe. Trees were uprooted, dozens of cars were damaged, and several areas including San Giovanni and Trastevere experienced power outage. Emergency service reported for the 300 calls per hour due to flooding, standing driver and collapsing avenue. Meteorologists described the event of atmospheric bomb, formed that warm Mediterranean air cooled it with a cold Arctic and descended over the central Italy.
Questo è un grosso problema, molto grosso. Porta via il negozio qua, adesso porta via macchine e tutto.
Residents come pouring the chaos, and the scene from disaster film the noise was different, said Andrea Messina, a shop owner near Teto Messina. It felt like a sky opened about us, hail, winds, thunder, and once and meteorologists attribute the storm and a cut-off flow. A cold air remains trapped in the central Mediterranean that collided with the humid air from the Africa, and the received and explosive weather. The event highlighted the turbulent trend. Italy has forced a 40% increase in the extreme rainfall over the past decade. In aftermath, clean-up crew worked to remove debris and restore essential service while local volunteers distributed food and blankets of those displaced. Schools and public officials reminded closer authority as it damaged the city's aging infrastructure. The storm also disrupted air and sea traffic. Flights at Falconboschi Airport were delayed and diverted due to strong crosswind, and a ferry service connecting Sicily to Naples and Cagliari were temporarily suspended. Meteorologists from the Italy Air Force where the service explained that the storm was triggered by a low-pressure system moving the North Africa, coating with warm air, humid air from the Mediterranean, apart from the intensified due to rising sea temperatures. Local officials warned that more severe weather will follow. The storms are becoming stronger and more frequent, said Major Roberto Lagala. We must adapt our infrastructure and changing climate. By early morning, the storm has moved eastward, leaving behind the mud-stretched streets, debris at the damaged vehicles. Volunteers joined fighters in clear force with the local characters provided to aid families to lost belongings. This event noted Sacramento, how South Italy, in a front line of Europe's shifting climate where sudden storms, flash flood, and recovered heat waves are now part of a daily life. Rome has been struck by an unprecedented and violent hailstorm that transformed the eternal city into surreal winter scene, shocking residents and disrupted daily life. Within the minutes, large hailstorms, some the size of walnuts, battered the capital, damaged cars, broke windows, and blanket in streets in white. The storm hit late in the afternoon, following days in unusual warm weather. Meteorologists from Italy's Civil Protection Department subscribed the event as sudden and extreme, with intense rainfall and temperature drops of nearly 10 Celsius under an hour. It was one of the most intense connective storms we've seen over Rome in a year, said meteorologist Alicia Romano. Social media quickly filled with dramatic footage showing torrents and ice and water cascading down the city capable alley, with the Trastevere and Prato districts drains overloaded, turning roads into river in slash. It was terrified, said local resident Marco De Luca, and was hit at the heart but felt like a window were going to explode. Tourist areas included termina were temporarily evacuated, and the boats of the harbor were secured against the winds and waves. Meteorologists explained that the storm was uploaded by the Mediterranean low-pressure system, cooling with a humid warm air from Africa. This combination produced extremely violent storm in short time, said Dr. Antonio Latour, a weather expert in Sicily. Experts alike the becoming more frequent due to climate change. Agriculture losses are expected to be significant, with the olive groves, vineyard and citrus orange damaged by the hail flooding. Local farmers have already called for the emergency relief and the offsite and economic impact. Authority urged residents to remain indoors, avoid flooded roads and follow emergency advisory. Mayor Oliver Orlando stressed by the importance of immediate cleanup efforts of reinforced to need the better flood prevention infrastructure across Italy. As the storm subsided, Sicilian surveyed for the damage, cleared debris and braced for the next burst of unpredictable weather, a stark reminder of the island's vulnerability to extreme Mediterranean storms. Venice, Italy, the famous floating city, was once again have been brought to a need a wrath of nature. During the night, a powerful storm hit Venice, accompanied by torrential rain, strong winds and severe flooding, which left much of the city underwater. Waves crashed into a lagoon and gusts reached speed of over 100 km/h, raising the sea level on this highest point in this year. Residents are awakened to a howling wind and southern on series of cities moist. A flooding protection system was activated to protect Venice with the rising waters. Despite the borough's severe areas, including St. Mark's Square and the rail tow, were flooded. We have seen floods before, but this was terrible. The water rose so quickly, said local shop owner Giulia Ferraro. Those business was knee-deep in water. Tourists caught in a sudden storm wandered through the flooded alleys in plastic boats, with the rescue service walking through the night, and the rescue standard residents to the secure boats and a heart broken loose after they moored. Chaos and disbelief swept through the Italian capital as a ferocious hailstorm tore across Rome, blanking the streets and the ice, flooding tunnels and leaving residents trapped in their cars and homes. The storm, which started suddenly in the late afternoon, turned into eternal city, into the witness described it as a frozen battlefield. Meteorologists said the event was triggered by a clash between the warm Mediterranean air and rapidly advanced Arctic front, a combination that prodded towering thunderstorm and the severe hail. Within moments, hailstorm the size of large coins plumped the city, shattered windows and dented vehicles across entire neighborhoods. I've lived in Rome, and whole life I never seen anything like it, said 34-year-old taxi driver Marco De Santis. The storm unleashed torrents in the city water through the several districts, including Trastevere, San Giovanni, and Ossa, where the drainage system was overwhelmed. Firefighters reported to more than 1,500 emergency calls, rescuing stranded motorists and pumped water from metro station and underground garage. Power cuts hit multiple areas, while traffic across A19 ruined road ground to half an hour. Photos and videos shared online showed rivers of ice flowing through the incident, cobblestone streets and a half-building knee-deep around the famous landmark. The Trevi Foundation overflowed with a ruin of water, while parts of Via del Corso resembled glacier.